Hi, and good morning. I'm Ann Hales with AARP Alabama, and this is Art with the Armory. I imagine that several of you have kept a diary at some point in your life. Today, we're going to explore one type of a diary, an art journal. And we'll also take a look at a form of mixed media using paper you have around the house that can be included in an art journal. The artist, Heather Parrish, who's here with us today, calls it junk mail flowers. So, what is an art journal? It's a visual diary where you can express your feelings through art. You can use writing, drawing, other art mediums to express your hopes, your dreams, your fears, or just your everyday experiences, right? It's a great way to relax. Even if you're not an artist, it's a great way to relax and explore that right brain, put those thoughts on paper. And so with us today is the talented Margaret Barber of the Armory Learning Arts Center, who's with us every month. Hello, Margaret.
Hey, Ann. It's nice to be
Margaret, it's good to have you. And Margaret's going to talk about journaling from her own experience. We also have Heather Parrish, who is the owner of Southern Art and Makers Collective. She's a painter who specializes in mixed media. And she's going to demonstrate one way to use those bits of paper you have around your house. You can put them in an art journal page, or you can just do it to have a creative art experience. So welcome, Heather.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited that you're here. Today, what we decided we would do is we have a video that shows what the creation that Heather has done. And we'll show you that video first. And after the video, it's about a 15-minute video that walks you through the whole process. After the video, we'll take questions and also go through some of the supplies for journaling and just what an art journal is. A little bit different from your typical journal. So we hope that you'll stay with us on that. We also will put up some information. We'd like for you to do a survey. Take a survey of this when you are finished with this show, because we do these series every month, these sessions, and we are having a blast. So I hope that you are too as you're joining us. So let's move on to the video.
Today, I cannot wait to spend some time with y'all. It's going to be awesome. The things that I'm talking with you today, there's a myriad of ways. There's multiple ways that you could use these techniques. You can use them in a standalone piece, which is something that I've created, or funsies. You could use these techniques in a journal. And I love the process of creating. It's wonderful. It helps me. Now, I'm going to share this with you. I am a cancer survivor. I had ovarian and uterine cancer, and I am a survivor from that. I sometimes deal with a lot of pain in my body. And so one of the ways that I like to use as sort of a distraction from that, a diversion technique, is by creating. And I find that once I create, it lifts my mood. There's something amazing that happens when my hands are making something. And I dare say that it will probably be the same for you as well. So being able to have a way to express yourself, even if you don't have the words, it's amazing what visual things can do to help you kind of express that emotion. And today we're going to be working on a fixed image, an image that's, we're going to do some flowers. So this is going to be this is the piece that I created. And y'all, I created it 100% from using magazine. Are you hearing me? Magazine. These little flowers came from magazine paper. What we're doing is we're redeeming this stuff that people send us that's just that we just want to throw in the trash, but we're going to turn it into a beautiful treasure. So I am basically taking this color of blue that I love, and I think this would make a wonderful background. And what I'm going to do, I'm not no rhyme or reason. I'm just going to rip it. I mean, do you see how easy that is? I just ripped it. I love this piece. So I'm going to take it, and then I'm going to get my glue that's there and right here, and I'm going, ooh, got a little much, and I'm going to put it down here first, and then I'm going to put this, oh, I don't know, how do I want to do it? Ooh, I think I'll do that. I'll do that right there. You see, I've got it down. Now, I'm going to go back over on top of it, and I'm gonna put the glue on that. It will dry clear. It will not be that milkiness. And just add in color like I like it. And I'm gonna show y'all right here. This is what we've got so far. And y'all, I don't know if I'm gonna do, if this is gonna be the bottom. I don't know which one's gonna be the bottom, and that's okay. We don't have to know to begin with now, do we? Now, if you're working in a journal, you probably will. But if you're doing a standalone piece, you can do it any which way you want. And I've finished this one up, okay? And because I kind of want to let that dry a little bit more, I'm going to move to one that I've already done before. But there's the one that we worked on. There it is, okay. Well, now I'm just going to switch it out. I just want to figure out what side do I want to be the top and the bottom. So I'm going to do it like this simply because we got a little bit of a darker down here and there's more lighter tones, and I just actually like the construction of it. I like the way that looks. But the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to show you our reference photo, okay? This is our reference, and so I am looking to create my vase that I want to do. Because I'm working on a smaller scale, you can see the two. This one's an 8 by 10 and this one is not an 8 by 10. I don't really know what size this is. I am going to do a different technique. I'm going to take my trusty piece of paper, and y'all want to know what it is? An envelope. What? Yes, it's the inside of an envelope. Are you kidding me? I just love that. I'm going to cut this one, and I'm going to cut a shape as opposed to tearing it with scissors. So I'm going to just cut me a little shape. And I'm going to try to be aware of scale. And that just means how big I want this to be in relation to the whole picture. So, oh, I think that's going to do. Okay. That's sort of wonky. That's sort of a little wonky. But a little wonky never hurt anybody. Okay? Never hurt one person. Okay. So that's going to be my vase. Look at that. Again, still wonky. That's okay. So what I'm going to do is this piece, I'm going to hold it here. And because, like in our reference photo, it's almost like this is wallpaper, or I don't know what it is. It's just whatever I wanted it to be. Because that's the beautiful thing about being an artist and about creating your own work. You can just decide. So I'm going to float this a little bit, but here's the deal. I'm not going to glue it down first, but I want to get it so I can start thinking about my flowers, and I can think about what's going to be in this. The way floral designers do it, florists and stuff, is they actually come in and they build their floral arrangements by putting greenery in first, kind of like structure piece. I like this one. I think I'm going to come in and I'm going to use my scissors on this one. I'm just going to give me some structure. I'm just kind of, I don't know, I'll come in and like cut that in half. Yeah, just whatever. Again, it's whatever that you want to do. But like, I just made that, it was a little big, it was a little wide, so I just, whatever. And see how that has that like little thing, that little shape? Well, you know, when you have a floral arrangement, things kind of go off to the side, and that's wonderful. Love is, if you think about it, you don't see any stems in here. If you get real detailed, you'll see there's not really any stems. I didn't do that. I didn't do it on purpose. The reason why is that our eye is so amazing, is that if you show it certain things, it will fill in the missing stuff for us. So you as an artist don't have to worry about getting every single detail right. Yeah, okay, that's going to work. Right? It's going to kind of cover it. And here's another little tip, y'all. when I do put this down, I'm going to probably try not to put it dead center. There is something about a piece being just a little left of center or a little right of center that makes it more interesting, like clearly. But I want to get to the fun part, which the fun part for me is the flowers. It's making the flowers. See how much red that is. How gorgeous is that red color? I could use that red. Now, I'm going to go back to my favorite technique, which is the ripping. And so I'm just going to come in and start. I'm going to have to probably adjust it. But see, that's about the size that I've done. That's going to be one petal. I still got some glue right there. And I'm just going to come and just add me a little. There it is. I'll add some more though. I want there to be a little bit of movement in that petal. And so I don't glue everything down like I have done everything else, right? Because it makes it a little bit three-dimensional. And I think that I'll show you. It just adds so much life. So you see how I've come in. Now it's fully secure. You can see they're not going, I mean, you could rip it, but they're not going anywhere. But I like the ability of that little bit of the petal to come away from your main piece. I think it just gives it a little movement. It's fun. Anyhow, so to do that, this is a palette knife. I'm just showing you, I'm going to come in. You don't have to have a palette knife. It's my tool, my utensil to show you. Just so that it just stays up like that. So see, I did that. I'll just do a little bit more. Once I get my anchor piece down, I like to come and kind of layer on top of that a little bit, let them overlap just ever so slightly. Kind of let's see if I can move that a little bit so you can see a little better. Okay. Do you see how I have... So I'm just kind of coming in, they're stuck down. I just want to make sure that they're flexible and they're not going to, see that one almost, did y'all see? That one almost was stuck down. Sometimes I take the end of my paintbrush and I kind of like twist it a little bit. And that just kind of, I don't know. I don't really know what it does, but it just makes it feel good. So it might not do anything, but for me, I just like doing it. So sometimes I come in and just kind of twist it. And it makes it feel a little bit more real. I don't know if y'all can see that. There we go. I want to do a center. Because every flower is going to have a center, right? Do you see how it's got that little stripe? That little stripe. I think that will look so cute on that red. Just as the center. I'm just ripping it. And oh my gosh, this is going to make me so happy. All right, y'all. Let's do this. I'm going to do it just like this. Oh, let's get the palette now. Y'all. Oh my gosh. I mean, who doesn't need a little stripe in their life? Okay, seriously. Y'all, it's the little things in life, it just makes you happy. I could walk you through making 400 of these, but I'm not going to. Because it's the same process. I'll do one more so that we can make sure that we have the process down just so. And I'm probably going to use, I don't know, I'm going to look through my paper choices and see what I want to make. Hey, this looks like my flesh tone almost, but there we go. That's what we're talking about right there. Y'all see that? There we go. They're about that size. Right? We're going to go a little that way. And I think I might like to have this be down here, or do I want to do it up here? I think I'll do it down here for now. So I'm going to put it right there, right in that area. So get my glue, come right there. This is going to be our anchor piece. Yep, we're getting there. Now that guy, he's a little bit longer, but he's just different. Okay. And you know what, y'all? I think, 1, 2, 3. I did 5 on that one, and I think I did 5 on this one, and I think I'm going to let that one be done. wonderful rule of thumb as well. Just tell y'all this. I don't know if you've heard this, but a lot of artists and creators, we love working in odd numbers. For some reason, our eyes as humans, it's more attractive to us to see things in odd numbers. So I like to do things in odd numbers, if at all possible. It doesn't mean that it's a hard and fast rule, but it's just something that I enjoy. So each of these petals have 5. Other thing I wanted to do, let's see. Okay, so we're going to put this little fella. Do you see? Oh my gosh. Do you see how it y'all, it is going over the side? Oh my gosh. I just love when that happens. Okay. And because of that, I think I might be at this point ready to glue this down. It is happening. Do you see if I tried to do that, how wide that is? Now, if you're doing a larger piece, it's all about scale. And so in proportion to what you're doing. So I want to try to make it about that right there. We're going to make our deckled edge. Okay. So I'm going to try. Let's see. Yes. That's working beautifully. Okay. So I love that now. Okay. I'm just trying to get it where I think I want to have it. So yeah, I like that being about right there. So I'm going to make sure when I take my little piece here to start my stripes, I'm going to make sure that it all goes to the same, around the same spot. So I guess I could go ahead and glue it as well on here. And let's see, do it right there. Yeah, that'll be my first bit of my stripes going on. Yeah, we're starting to create a little bit of a pattern there with our stripes. And probably if I were going to continue to finish this, I would add maybe a third. So that is the process of building a fun little magazine inspired and using the magazines, or as I like to call it, junk mail. It's like a junk mail flower. One of the things that I kept telling my students was, the more you do, the better you become. And that is true. We all start at the same place. I don't care if people have an innate ability to draw or to paint and it just comes to them. They all had to start at the same place. And that same place is not knowing a whole lot. The more you do, the better you become. It has been a joy to be with you. And so there you go. Make you some fun art today.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
You know what I like about this is that it can be, because that was not difficult. It takes some time and some thought, but you played with it, and there's no right or wrong way to do it, right, Heather?
Correct. In fact, the right way to do it is the way you want to do it.
Yeah. And that's just expressing. And so we did want to talk about some of we'll answer questions about this and also let people know some of the supplies that you would need, because you can do art like this. You can do mixed media like this. You can do watercolor,
Absolutely.
even acrylics, stamps. Talk about, Margaret, you've done journaling. So talk about some of the things, some of the different ways to.
I just brought some I've got quite a few journals over the years. And some are full of just, I've got different kinds. I mean, and the professionals talk about that journaling is an effective way of expressing what's going on interiorly. And that can help with emotionally processing your thoughts, as well as just cognitively getting your thoughts organized on paper or whatever. And so I don't see why I think that art journaling is a beautiful way to do that, because it could mean that the image that you produce and express through visual art is definitely valuable to get those emotions out. And one of the things that I thought was important that Heather mentioned in the video, or while I think it was in the video, about elevating your mood. That is something that is so true. When I make, I'm so much happier when I can get my hands dirty in clay or make something with art or whatever. But let's see. Do we want to talk about the professionals talk about daily journaling is good, but at least 3 times a week, maybe? I know that I keep kind of a prayer journal, and I do that every day. But also I have like a hiking journal when I go on hikes with my son. We always have, I make a record of those experiences or fun people we meet or thoughts that come up during those times. I've got stuff from years and years and years. And then, I'm by no means a lot of drawing, but I do some drawing in my journals as well. And those are just ways to get out thoughts that are in there that need to come out. And it might come out in a pot, or it might come out in a some piece of visual memory that gets put into another piece of art. So is that kind of what you had in mind to talk about?
Yeah, I think so. Just the different ways that you can express yourself, and they can be. Heather, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, that you don't do as much journaling as much as you do individual pieces of art. That's another way that you can put together a journal, though, is your different pieces of art, whether you do them daily or whatever schedule you're on, and you can actually bind them at a later time. You can keep them chronologically, but you can bind them at any time. They can be different sizes of paper, or you can fit them into one. I've also read about choosing, Heather, I want you to talk about this a little bit, and we were talking about the gesso, choosing the kind of paper that you can use in a journal. Before we do that, though, however, so hold that thought. I want to get to a couple of questions, because I know that they've asked those, they've asked a couple of times. Julie Wooster has asked, what kind of glue is good to use?
Thank you so much. I, in the demonstration, was using something called matte medium, and it's something that I got at my local art store, but it doesn't have to be fancy. If you have some Elmer's glue, some school glue at your house, sometimes you can use that, but it might be a little thick. And so you would want to thin that down with water. And it doesn't have to, there's not like a huge, particular ratio. You kind of thin it with a little bit of water, so it's a little bit more easy to use. But you can I use matte medium, and it's matte, so it dries non-glossy. They also have gloss medium. There's just about any kind of water soluble glue. So as long as you can thin it with water, or you can use it. Y'all remember Mod Podge or Decopodge? I think that was a real popular thing in the 70s, but it had a resurgence. And I actually used that first. I was trying to use something that people would have readily on hand. Not everybody's going to have matte medium. It's what I had. But again, you could use any kind of water soluble glue. I might not use wood glue, but you possibly could do that. I mean, if you have it, I'm thinking about what are some glues that people have. You could use super glue, but you're not going to want to do that with your brush. That would be something that was just going to stay there, and you wouldn't want to use a brush. But anything that you can, if you're using a brush, which you don't have to use brushes, you could actually use an old credit card. There's so many different tools that you can use to be able to get your papers down on whatever substrate you're using, whether that be a journal, whether that be a standalone. I think I was using cardboard. Honestly, that's what my when I did that piece, and I'm sorry I don't have it here with me, but when I was doing it, I wanted to use something because I knew I was going to put it in a shadow box frame. Because y'all, I don't know if you know this, if you're doing standalone pieces, if you put it in a frame, it elevates it. And all of a sudden it feels important. And it is important because you created it. So there you go. So I would use a school glue. I would use, any kind of thing. But I personally was using matte medium.
Okay. And then Marilyn Starzuski, I hope I'm saying that right, Marilyn, asked, can you add text or a title to a journal page?
Yes.
So take that.
Okay. So one of the things I get really excited because when I first came to this art practice years ago, the thing that drew me to this type of art practice was adding text. There is something powerful about the written word. And so one of the things that I have done is I have become a typewriter collector. I know I'm going to bring up typewriters just a little bit. And yes. And I love the ability to type out whatever phrase, whatever word that I'm feeling as I'm working in with that particular moment. And I was doing a standalone piece, but all of that bodes well for an actual journal, a visual journal. And there's a couple of things I want to go into about the differences. And it has more about the construction. I'll tell you that in just a second, but you can add, and I'll say, please add text, whatever is meaningful to you. Now, not everybody's going to have a manual typewriter hanging around, and that's just devastating. But anyhow, I'm going to do something right quick. Do y'all see over my shoulder? Let's see.
Both shoulders.
Yes, both shoulders. I have like several typewriters. I'm a little bit of a collector. I say that it was my midlife crisis, is that I started collecting typewriters. I love them. However, everybody's obviously got some type of a way to get on the internet. If you can use your computer and you can use regular printer paper to be able to type out, because that's what I did too before I had the luxury of having typewriters. And you can type out your phrase and add the title and do all the things. If you want to take it a step further and now I'm a huge book lover, but I also use a lot of books in my work because, you can go to the thrift store and find books. So it could be that you find the word, if you don't want to type out or whatever, but you find a book that you have and that you want to use for these purposes, and you might find a word in that and you can just cut it out and you paste it. I mean, a lot of these techniques that I'm teaching you guys are things that we did back in kindergarten. We learned how to use scissors and we played with glue and we made these things. Yeah, it's a little bit more sophisticated than, Mrs. Berry taught me, but that was my kindergarten teacher. Hi, Miss Berry. Anyhow, but it's very user friendly. This is just something that I feel like that anybody could step into. And that's why I wanted to do that. I wanted to do something that I felt like you guys would have readily available. And being an artist and creating, you don't have to have the best supplies, or you don't have to have all of that. Now, I wanted to briefly jump into when you are creating with a journal. One of the things that you want to be aware of is the thickness of your paper, the paper quality. Sometimes if you're working on a lined journal, your paper is not going to be as thick as if you were dealing with something called watercolor paper, right? And just like it says, watercolor paper can take water. It can take on water without warping or buckling. And so one of the things that you can do, however, is you can take that adhesive. If you say you're working in a journal that's a lined journal, okay, and the paper is going to be kind of thin, but we want to strengthen that. So what I suggest you do is you glue 2 or 3 pages together, and then that's going to create, obviously you're going to have to let it dry, but what that's going to do is it's going to give you a thicker paper to then adhere your images on. And one of the things I wanted, back to what Margaret was saying earlier about journaling and that kind of a thing, it's very interesting that words are formed on the left side of our brain. That is where we get all of our ability to speak. But our emotions, we sometimes are on the right side of the brain. Like sometimes we can't put into words how we're feeling. But one of the things that we can do is we can create something. And there have been times that I haven't always known how to express verbally how I'm feeling, but I can work, whether I'm just drawing or I am creating just with color. I love using really bright colors in my work. But it lifts my mood, and I might not be able to I might not be able to like put my finger exactly on the words to define how I'm feeling, but visually I can express that. And I feel like that visually journaling, or it helps you even to express things that maybe, you don't have the words yet to say. They haven't been able to form. And so sometimes I think my work helps me. I've just in the last couple of years lost both of my parents. They both passed away. And that does something to you as a human. And everybody goes, we all experience loss, but there are times when you just don't have the words. Right. And so I feel like a journaling practice, a creating practice is so beneficial with your just living as a human and trying to have healthy emotional outlets.
Right.
And so anyhow,
I think that's good. While we're talking, I think that's a good way to segue into this too, the supplies that you'll need to be able to do this, because you talked about the matte media and medium. Mm-hmm. This also mentioned the gesso, which I had gotten off. Someone had suggested this online. There are so many things that you can find talking about art journaling online. So just do a search and you can find lots of ideas and lots of references to what you need. But these are the kinds of things that you need that Heather has talked about, and Margaret, and they just your basic, it looks like basic art supplies for the most part, right?
Yes. Would you like me to talk through these a little bit?
Sure, I'd like that.
Okay. You can have obviously a blank art journal or pages that you can bind. You can even use an old book. Like if you're like me, I love books. Sometimes people that love books get a little nervous when you want to use them. But if you find a book at a thrift store, or you find something that, you're never going to read again, or you don't really care much about, you can actually, they call them I can't remember exactly what they call them, but you could actually work in that. And one of the things that say you had a book that you love, but maybe you have a couple of copies of it or something like that. If you wanted to take one of those, then what you could do is you could use the gesso and gesso is, for the most part, it's going to be white. It has white to it. And what it does is it creates an opaque surface for you to be able to work on top of. And it gives it gives the paint or whatever you're using tooth. It gives it the ability to adhere to it, as opposed to, like, if you were working in a slick book, some of your stuff might not necessarily adhere to that. But it also, I think it serves as like a whiteout. It becomes opaque unless you get clear gesso, which that's a whole nother thing. You would use clear gesso if you wanted to still be able to see the stuff behind it. But again, I have actually created something that's really wonderful, is that I've actually created, I've taken classes to be able to make your own journals, and you use different papers and that kind of stuff that you can do. So you can also do that. You can use loose papers, and be able to create that. So let's see, you would need some, if you want to use paint. There are so many different types of paint that you can get in different, if you're not wanting to add, like, I might not encourage you to, unless you just know that this is something that you're going to do for a long time and you want to do the investment. I probably wouldn't use artist grade paints, which are going to be like the top end. And most likely because of the drying time, you're going to want to work with something that's, if you are using paint, you want to work with something that is going to be water soluble. And also, as I said before about the glue, you want it to be cleaned up by water. It will dry and it will be fine, but you could use craft paints. You could use house paint if you had some house paints, or sometimes you can go to the hardware store and they'll have the sample pots, and maybe somebody, they're like not cast offs, I guess you could say. People didn't want them, and so that they'll have those for a discounted rate. You just have to understand that house paint is going to dry in a certain, probably mostly flat, like a flat. So if you want to add something on top of it to make it glossy, you can do that. But you want to just have, there's lots of different places that you can get paint inexpensively. To at least try it out and see. And then you'll need a couple of different types of brushes, and sometimes they'll have like packs of brushes that you can get inexpensively that'll give you several different styles, and you'll kind of figure out what you enjoy. But again, you don't necessarily have to have brushes. You can use popsicle sticks. You can use all kinds of things, and then pencils, pens, and markers. Now, I'm an artist, and that's kind of like supplies, or kind of like my candy. So, pencils, pens, things that you love to use, whatever, that there's just, oh my gosh, so many different things. One of the things that it depends on the effect that you're trying to do. One of the things that I really love using are pens that will not bleed with water. So they dry, and they're not water soluble. And so you can use like a ballpoint pen. It's gonna stay, but I love, 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 love the way that works. And I know that if I go over it with glue or anything like that, it's not going to smear. And so that's just something you have to be aware of. And then, of course, your glues, your adhesives, you can use glue sticks. You can use, like I said, school glue. You can use matte or gloss medium. And when I say that, the matte or gloss has to do with when it completely dries, what sheen is it going to have? You can, anything that can be water soluble that you can clean up your brush or whatever you're using to use it. You just want to make sure that you can clean it up with water. Paper. Oh my word, y'all. I used, I like to call it junk mail. I use like a magazine. I figured everybody would have magazines on hand, have something, even if it is oh my gosh, I don't know about y'all, but I get catalogs. I get, clothes catalogs, so many different things. I didn't ask for them, but they just come, they show up at my house. And so sometimes you can use that. you can use, we all get some kind of art. I mean, some kind of envelopes. And sometimes the envelopes will be security envelopes. And that's what I was using in the video, was a security envelope. I love it because it was like the blue and white pattern. And I just enjoy that. Sometimes they're black and white, you know, it just depends. And I even saw a red and white one time, which was really cool. I'd never seen that before. I know, paper hoarder issues. Okay. Anyhow, so you can use that. Again, those are things that you don't have to go out and purchase. If there's a specific image that you're wanting to have, honey, there's so many different places you can go online, and you can do a search for free, images, whether it be like, I'm immediately off the top of my head, I'm thinking like a Victorian something, and you could type in a search for, Victorian. Okay. I had something I was working on, and I needed Victorian styled wallpaper, like a Victorian newspaper, well, I mean, I'm not going to actually see that, but I needed it to be a certain size. So I typed all that in, and I found something, but it was a free image. Like, it's in almost like public domain, I guess you could say. So I'm not going to be in copyright infringement if I use it. So I printed that off on copy paper and I used it. And so you could do that. There's just so many different places, but y'all, the art supply place or the craft store is going to have tons of scrapbooking paper. You can use that. Again, I like to use a lot of old books. One of the things I really love using are old textbooks, and I love using French textbooks. I don't know, I took French for several years, and when I was in elementary and high school, and so I have an affection for that. It's just whatever you feel connected to, you can use that. And I have like old song pages and things like that I've used before. So many different things. Stencils. I do use stencils at times. Here's the fun thing. You can create your own stencils, or I use I was working on a piece yesterday, and I had this pen that it was like, it's an insert, but I loved that it had an opening in the back part of it. And so I actually would dip the end of the pen into my paint that I was using. And I was able to create my own pattern using that, just using, it's really about not necessarily like you have to have the best kinds of things. It's really just using your imagination. And so if you wanted to use a bottle cap, you could create a stencil. If you wanted to use, it just depends on what look you're going for. So you can use all different kinds of things, but you can also purchase ready-made stencils as well. And those are going to be, I know that Michael's has them, and I'm sure Hobby Lobby does. And I don't know whether their art supply store, like even in Birmingham, I know that Alabama Art Supply has, and I'm sure even in their Mobile location, they would have those. So you can find them, or you can find them online. Ink stamps. Oh my gosh, y'all. There are so many different things. Before I really got to use typewriters, I would use stamps. I would get an ink, just like an ink block that's, you could use the stamps. And I had, because I love words. And so I had like an alphabet set, a couple of different ones, different sizes. And I would go in and I would use those and do that. But you can do that they have lots of different stamps that you can find to kind of give you texture in the background. Whether that be, there's just a myriad of that. There's so many. And then, oh my gosh, the tapes. Oh my word, y'all, washi tape. That is just very popular. And you can get washi tape at Walmart. You can get it at Office Depot. I've gotten them both of those places. You can get it online. And I mean, you are limited by just your imagination. That is it. There's going to be a washi tape for anything. And they're so inexpensive. It's so wonderful. So you can use your tapes. You can do all kinds of stuff. And then, of course, scissors. y'all. Now, I love me some scissors, and I have invested in some really good ones. But you just any kind of a scissor will do. And of course, it says glue. And we've talked about the adhesives. So, you could use all different kinds of things. When you're working smaller, you may want to have a smaller pair of scissors. I've used embroidery scissors sometimes because it's so small, the thing that I'm trying to cut out or the scale or the size. And so I use that. Anyhow, I love some supplies. I hope that that's been helpful.
I think you did. And you said one thing that resonated with me is using words. When you find words, sometimes you were doing art and you find a word to go on the art, but you also can start with, maybe it's that day you are in a certain mood and you find some quote or something that really speaks to you. Then you can take that, put it on a page and decorate with that and decorate around that and do, or paint or whatever you feel. So sometimes finding that thought helps bring your thoughts in focus a little bit.
It gives you a starting off point.
Yes, starting off point. And using music, as you said, cutting out music pages, a beautiful way. And that's a good background too. Old music books, I bet that would make a beautiful journal, especially if you love music like most of us do.
I use them a lot. I have tons of old hymnals that have, sometimes congregations will just be getting new hymnals and that kind of stuff. And so, honey, let me tell you something. I got lots of stuff with lots of the old rugged cross. I mean, all kinds of stuff, just depending on, and it adds another wonderful way to center you in that moment. And it can become really meaningful. But then also my mom was an opera. She loved opera, and she wanted to be an opera singer when she was in college. She didn't become an opera singer, but she wanted to do that. She just loved it so much, and she studied music. And so having some, sheet music from her, you can, and if you don't, here's the fun thing. If you have a piece of sheet music, I wouldn't necessarily use the sheet music that my mom had, because I would want to hold on to that. But what I can do is I can make a copy of it. And so you still get to, have that very meaningful thing, but then you can also still use it for your creativity. And it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful.
We have one more comment, and then I'm going to ask everybody, if you don't mind, to stick around. We're going to show you a video of so many other things that we have coming up, events that I hope that you'll join us for too. But Susan Kaplan asked, do you know where I can donate clean cottage cheese and sour cream containers? I wash my plastic trash because my granddaughter and I do a lot of art. I have clean Elmer's glue bottles. Do you know, do schools take... I don't know.
Schools do.
It's your local art teacher. It depends on if I wasn't an art teacher in high school for a high school. It depends on, they may be able to use that. I would think or any kind of after school care program or something like that may be able to use it. Because there's so many different things that you can. And it's like when I was teaching, honey, you'll take just about anything, because there's so many different things that you can do with that, especially using them as organizers. Or when I was teaching, I taught high school students, precious ones. Anyhow, learning how to separate different paints, or if they've created paint, that kind of a thing, being able to have that closed up is an awesome thing.
Great. Well, I hope everybody, I put a link to a survey that I'd like everybody to take. Also, if you register for this online, you'll get an email with the survey, and we ask you to take that survey so we know how you like this and what other things you would like to see. But stick around. Thank you so much, Heather. And thank you so much, Margaret, for joining us today. And we're going to do one more event video, very short, just about a minute, to show you all the great things that we have coming up. And I hope that you will join us for these.